now we're starting due process. Um, Today is May 24th, 2012. We're setting up Due Process TV with Richard Fournier. We're recording introduction to the show, making sure that the server's live and running. I'm going to put Richard on for a few minutes while I go check the other computers and make sure that everything's functioning.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay. This is the beginning of a broadcast program set up by Head Injured Survivors of America in cooperation with Mr. Richard Fournier, which is me, the speaker. I'm also the founder and president of said nonprofit organization. We help veterans get benefits and support them in anything that may come up in their life where we can help. The due process part is, under the Constitution of the United States, all citizens are guaranteed due process, and particularly when violations are found to be violations of the certain portions of the 5th, 14th, and whatever amendments may pertain. I am not a constitutional wizard, but I know how to look up violations under those pertinent facts of the Constitution that violate due process. Under the Privacy Act, when a veteran or any citizen files a claim before the Social Security Administration, the Veterans Administration, the Board for Corrections of Military or Army, Navy, Marine Corps Records, there is a particular authority listed on, say for instance, Department of Defense Form 149 is the appropriate application for be considered before the Board for Corrections of Naval Records. I filed my first claim in 1988 upon discovery of facts that have been overlooked since 1965 in my wrongful administrative second honorable discharge. In June of 1965, I was given a legal letter by the Navy Medical Command at Mayport, Florida, informing me that I was being stripped of my uniform and basically kicked out of the Navy with an inadequate personality disorder. Their premise is that I was just born that way and I came into the service that way and they were putting me back out that way. Well, the day that I took my my pre-induction physical at the age of 17, the Navy had privy to the first hospital stay when I was 3 years old on June 30th, 1946, when I fell from the top of a standard-sized playground slide and was hospitalized between 3 hospitals. Now, I got a copy of those hospital reports from the Wayne County Health Department, which means that when the Navy gave me my pre-induction physical and they noted eye refractive errors and hearing loss in my right ear, that was probably associated with internal bleeding within the inner ear that destroyed the cilia in that ear. Also, my scholastic record from one school that I attended from 1949 to 1960 shows a definitive learning process, developmental stages, C's, D's, and F's, all the way from the first grade till the day I quit school, which was March 31st, 1960. I was 16 years old. I turned 17 on April the 7th. I had my pre-induction physical on April the 8th, where I said that they found these refractive errors and a pre-existing hearing loss, considered them not considered disabling, with a little note stating do complete physical and statistics at first duty stations, which would have been at boot camp in San Diego. Now I'm here to tell you that I finished 4 years of enlistment as I was supposed to get out the day before I turned 21. It was called a kiddie cruise, or minority cruise. I actually served 3 years, 11 months, and 3 weeks, because I went in just when I turned 17. If you went in the day before you turned 18, you get out the day before you turned 21. That's the way that kiddie cruise thing worked. But I'm here to tell you, I had reactions to malaria medication. The first ship that I served on was the USS Maury, a geographical survey ship. We were working the coastline of Bangkok, Thailand. And you know what? The whole ship was maintained on an anti-malarial prophylaxis, chemotherapy, some type of a chemical, to prevent you from coming down with malaria. Or if you came down with malaria, they would use the primaquine and chloroquine diphosphates to treat the malaria. I had textbook side effects, but it was never entered into the official record that I was having side effects from the malaria medication. Now, here's an interesting thing that I found out when I started investigating the primaquine and chloroquine diphosphates. I've learned through research that those medications were, first of all, synthesized by the Germans. The Germans found it too hazardous to the human peripheral nervous system, and they stopped giving it to their troops. Two doctors out of the University of Chicago, Illinois and Chicago, synthesized the derivatives that are known as primaquine and chloroquine diphosphates. It's been used since 1941. But from 1941 to 1957, there was no testing of any males who may be suffering from an X chromosome genetic defect called glucose 6-phosphate dehydrogenase deficiency disease, simply put G6PD. The glucose pathways are disrupted. The old red blood cells, under the influence of the 4-aminoquinoline compounds, primaquine and chloroquine diphosphates, can clump up and explode, causing a hemolytic condition. And if you have the X chromosome genetic defect, G6PD, a couple of things could happen to you, bad things. It could affect your eyes, your ears, or kill you. So from 1941 to 1957, in any population group where men were going overseas in order to take these types of medications to prevent malaria, within that population group had to be some G6PD deficient individuals. I immediately contacted my congressman, John Conyers, in 1988 and began discussing this with his military liaison, Mr. Fred Burton. Mr. Fred Burton had closed ears to what I had to say. He wasn't interested in anything I had to say. Basically blew this off. I tried bringing it to Donald Regal's attention, my United States Senator from Michigan. I went from Donald Regal to Conyers to Joe Nolenberg to Spencer Abraham to Candace Miller to Thaddeus McCotter, a whole host of elected officials that I was a constituent of. I was their constituent. Not one of them has given me the courtesy of a one-on-one to show them the excerpts from my record. Now, it took me from 1965 to the year 2000 to get a benefit package from the VA, where they paid me back to 1980. They've probably paid me over $500,000 so far. This is not about money. This is about dignity and justice. I was wrongfully discharged with an inadequate personality disorder. I don't know if you folks know about SPN codes on your DD-214, but there's been a lot of interest in this lately. There's a few cases that I'm aware of. The Crosby case, where he filed a lawsuit in federal court and was successful because of the stigmatization of his name, because they had put into his record reason and authority not to be shown, and that it was an inadequate personality disorder discharge. What's interesting that the spin code for inadequate personality would be spin code 461. But the SPN code that I've just located on my discharge paper is 464, which relates to schizoid. There's no way that I was a schizoid child. But what happened to me is readable from my record, except for one thing. The chronology of the record has been breached, which is a violation of the authority vested in Presidential Executive Order 9397. Presidential Executive Order 9397 was signed by Franklin Delano Roosevelt on Thanksgiving Day, November 22nd, 1943. Back here in Michigan, the proverbial usual Thanksgiving Day gridiron battle between the Green Bay Packers and the Detroit Lions wasn't played that year. But I'm here to tell you there has been a battle going on for due process of this speaker, and I'm finally getting somewhere. I'm getting ready to file a claim with the Department of Justice, Homeland Security, to the Attorney General's office. I'm going to present the evidence of my record that suggests that deceit was used to not present the total facts of an entry that they used to deny my claim in 1967. That entry is dated June 22nd, 1964, where it indicates that I had a suicide attempt. I swallowed a bottle of aspirin, tried to kill myself. My pregnant wife left me for a Marine. The reason it was so bothersome to me was because on September 11th, 1961, while stationed on the USS Maury and on Liberty in Honolulu, Hawaii, I was offered a ride back to base at Pearl Harbor by 3 individuals in civilian clothing. And they whacked me in the back of my head. They robbed me. They threw me out of that moving vehicle. And I suffered brain damage. Now I'll go fast forward in time to 1988. I'm at the VA hospital in Allen Park, Michigan. I'm having a CAT scan reviewed by the ear, nose, and throat doctor, Dr. Janikowski. And he asked me this question. And he says, Richard, he says, you have a deviated septum. Were you in a lot of fights when you were younger? I said, yeah, I probably was, just like all the rest of these young boys. He says, also, he said, we're going to have to operate on your nose, straighten up that deviated septum. And then he says to me, how'd you get that dent in the back of your head? And I said, well, sir, I didn't know I had a dent in the back of my head. My computer just went offline. Oh, it's back up. And anyway, that's when I went down to the VA after that explanation by the doctor, and because I'd never seen my entire medical file before, and I started pulling out information that was very interesting. Long story short, this is just the first entry to what we're going to call Uniform for Richard under military case files. We're going to promote my storyline because I believe that since I can prove that the Navy wrongfully discharged me under that administrative code, that I'm still a member of the United States Navy, and I think under the Tucker Act, I don't have to file a lawsuit. I can just purge my record with the truth, give it to them, and say, look, you got to make a decision. I'm still a member of the United States Navy. You have to reinstate me for 1 day, properly discharge me for medical reasons. And by the way, while you're at it, cut a check for back pay from now until the date that you to July the 16th, 1965. I'm going to sign off for now, but I will be back again with more information, with a better program, and hopefully it's going to grab up the interest of a whole lot of prior service personnel all the way back to Vietnam. I'm looking over 350,000 of these types of discharges. Thank you. Stop.